did you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another episode of All About Mechanics. Now today is going to be Unhallowed Grave. We're going to go in with the same setup as we usually do with one tank, one healer, one stamina DPS and one magic DPS to make sure that no rolls are left out at all. And of course we are going to go into the secret boss locations to show you how to get there and to show you obviously how to defeat them as well. And of course above all we are going to show you the hard mode. So everything will be explained. Here we go. Now, this particular dungeon does have some very familiar mechanics. If you played the Dragonhold story, you will be familiar with this Batman mechanic, where basically you have a grapple hook and you can go across ditches and climb up cliffs and all that good stuff. Now, that is very, very relevant, not just for your exploration, but of course for some of the boss mechanics. Now, the first pull is pretty standard. Tank should go in and turn everything away from the group. Make sure you interrupt the archers and stay out of stupid. You're going to see a lot of this stuff, so make sure that you do pay attention to the ads. And as a DPS or a healer, you do not stand in front of them. Now, these grapples are going to take a little bit of practice, but I will explain how to be very, very efficient with those as we go. But a lot of this is your basic stuff. If you're doing Unhallowed Grave right now, you've probably done some other dungeons in the past. You've probably done some of the base game stuff, so most of the enemies' effects should be very familiar to you. So just again, use your brain, don't stand in stupid, and stay away from the face of the enemies if you are not the tank. Now again, the tank should pull these all in together as much as possible, hold them still while you do as much AoE as you can. It's not a DPS race, remember they're just ad pulls, don't panic. But the main thing you want to avoid is standing in front of that two-hander. The tank should prioritize that target first as far as taunts are concerned, because if that does hit a DPS or a healer, they are likely to die if they don't block the heavy attack, and sometimes they can still kill you anyway, so be very, very careful of those. The ads aren't too bad, but those ones are the ones you really have to watch out for. Now, we are coming up to the first secret area. There are actually 3, and each individual one will give you a buff, which is going to be beneficial to you, of course, throughout the rest of the dungeon, and of course for the last boss. So you do want to get these if you're going to go for the hard modes. You can do it without, of course, but we're going to show you how to do it with them. Now, again, a very simple ad pull, but you've got casters in the room, so make sure you interrupt them. And of course, remember, the big guy with the two-hander sword, he does have to be aggroed first by the tank, because otherwise he'll start whooping people. Now, look very, very carefully here. Off to the left, we have to crouch in this little gap, then go right, and then there's another gap just here as well. Now, once you're in, this is when you have to go kind of rock climbing a little bit. This can be a little bit tricky. So you have to follow this round to the left and do not fall off. Don't go jumpy, jumpy, jump unless you really need to, because otherwise you're going to off-center yourself and fall off and slip off these rocks. So just follow it around. You will have to obviously jump up to higher platforms, not massively, but just enough to get up them, and then go through this little gap here as well. Remember, you can slip off, so be careful. Now, once you're here, this is where you go off to the left. Again, you need to climb up these ones. Make sure you get this little ledge here, otherwise you'll get stuck and wonder where the hell you're supposed to go. And this is the part where most people fall off. Watch that and hug the wall here. Hug it very, very tight. Once you jump off, there's another rather scary drop coming up, where most people don't see this. They wonder where they're going, they're not sure what to do, and then they start looking on YouTube, which, by the way, you're welcome. This is why it's here. Now, go to the very, very edge and look down. Now, the trick to these grapples is that you don't have to be very, very, very accurate. You just need to have your cursor in the vicinity of it, so just in the right direction. So fall off and hit that button as soon as you see it flag up, and it will pull you in. You don't have to be 100% accurate. You can be kind of a 30-degree angle almost on some of them, as long as you are facing it. So just have your cursor in the roundabout area. Don't spin the camera like hell. Just keep it as clean and straight as you can, and just crack it as you come down. Now, this boss is going to introduce this mechanic in a fight, so be very aware of this. There's lots of platforms around the edges, and you will have to utilize them. So, first of all, we go in and we start hitting the boss. Just bear in mind, of course, you don't have to do these secret parts, but they do benefit you if you do. Now, you can kind of stack and burn on this boss. He's not too stressful as long as the tank keeps a taunt on it, but when this spread and AoE happens, you need to find a platform that doesn't have a spread and AoE on it, and pull yourself to it. Once it's exploded, then you can go back into the middle again. If you don't make it, you will be thrown off the edge and you will die. So as long as you maintain a taunt on the boss, it doesn't really affect the group. You just need to be careful where you place your feet. During the fight, you will see these guys. They have to be interrupted and killed, and they're on multiple different platforms, and they will try to knock people off the edges. Now, they will also teleport backwards and forwards as well, so you have to be very careful if you're trying to kill them. They will try and run away, and they'll try and one-shot people. off the edge. Now the tank can pull them into the middle, but you of course have two choices. You can just kill them, or you can let the tank deal with them and kill them in the middle and stack and burn the boss. It's your choice. Now, something to bear in mind, of course, while they're taking aim on a particular target, they will have a spread and AoE on them, on the player. If you don't make it in time to interrupt that target or kill it, that's when you'll be shot off the edge. So be very careful. Interrupt, chain them in, or kill them, or all of the above. Apart from that, you've got two options, really. You can stack and burn in the middle with the tank while they control this stuff, or you can send someone, as we've done here, around the edges and go and kill them while the rest of the group deal with the boss. Just remember, your main basic mechanic is when the boss is using those kind of channeled spreading AoE effects, as you can see here, you have to go to an empty platform. Yes, you can jump in the air and grapple at the same time, so don't panic if you make yourself fall off. You can still redeem yourself if you're quick. Apart from that, it's pretty much a stack and burn fest. So remember, interrupt the ads and kill them. Make sure you land on a platform that doesn't have a spread and AoE on it, and as a tank, maintain a taunt at all times. If you don't deal with the ads, you are dead. Now this little urn here does have a buff coming from it, as you can see here. We've got a brand new buff, and we can use this Portal of Apology to get back to the path where we first came from. Now the buff itself is actually really, really helpful, but necromancers get a bit of a boost to it. Now, I'll explain more about the buffs in a bit, but now we're back on the path and we're going up towards the first official boss. That last one was a boss, yes, but it was to do with the secrets. You don't have to do those for the completion of the dungeon. But we're going to show you all three of them. There's two basic ones, and then there's a third one that you can only get to if you've killed the other two. Now, this first boss is quite straightforward. He does have an incredibly hard heavy attack, though, so make sure your tank is paying attention to those blocks, because otherwise they are screwed. A high health tank is normally okay. A low health tank is going to need some serious help, so be very, very careful when he starts enraging and all that stuff. So, you've got some ads in the room that the tank must control and bring them into the group, and you just basically hit the boss while blocking his heavy attacks as the tank. So DPS do the damage from behind, healers keep people alive, and watch out for those lich crystals because they burst and they hurt. Now, when he gets down to around 75 to 70% health, and 70% actually, he will wake up one of these Malcolms, this massive flesh abomination, and you must kill it. During the fight, there will be some totems on the other side of the room that the boss will cast. You do need to send one of your DPS off to kill that, otherwise it will pepper you with damage over time, which really hurts. It's technically direct, but it's a channeled ability, so it'll just keep hitting you until you're dead. So make sure you get rid of that. But these flesh abominations, they do need to be killed quite quickly because they do have a rather large spreading area of effect ability, kind of a stomp that will hurt you. So make sure you do stand out of that. Now, there are set health, here's the totem. There are set health percentages for the abominations. However, if you have a really high burn, you can get through it really, really quickly. He will still do the mechanics, but they'll land at different health percentages. So don't hold yourself up on that too much. Just keep an eye on him and pay attention to when he actually spawns them. Be sure that they are your primary target, however, you don't want to keep them in the room. Yes, the boss is low health now, but it's not over, so make sure you kill that flesh abomination quick. Now here comes the Juffy phase, where he's a big fluffy werewolf, and he's really, really annoyed. So, he's going to charge at the group, so get out of the way, otherwise you're going to get knocked over, and it may well kill you. Apart from that, there are ads spawning when he charges, so make sure, see, as a tank, you can pull these in if possible, and the group should focus these down as and when they can, because otherwise if you get overwhelmed with them, it's really going to hurt. Now, the big stomp, very simple, stay out of it, and the lich crystals, avoid it. Apart from that, just hit the boss. He doesn't do too much to the group in the way of damage as long as he's aggroed. Just make sure the tank always turns it away from people, then that way his big attacks, his breath and charge, will not get the group. It's quite straightforward, but it feels really hectic, because it is obviously a very fast-paced fight with lots of charging around and stuff going on. People do panic quite a bit. So just remember, key points: kill the ads, kill the totem, kill the flesh abominations, then get the boss down, then the room is clear, it's just the Juffy mode, and then kill his ads and stay out of his face. It's pretty simple, but it can end in tears. This dude here, do not run at him as a DPS, he will one-shot you. Make sure the tank has, of course, aggroed that before you get into a fight with it. It's the same as the ones from Fang Lair. They will heavy attack, they will one-shot a DPS or a healer if they try and block it. So just kill him as and when you can, and if you have to kill the ads first, kill the ads first. It's entirely up to you. As a tank, you must block the heavy attack from the Bone Colossus or you will take a one-shot. This is teaching you a very, very important mechanic. As you can see here, there's a sigil on the ground with 4 points on it, and one of them is lit up. That indicates or reflects to this particular one on the floor on our feet here. So basically what you saw there was the one that was lit up is the one that the boss needs to stand in. That's relevant for a boss coming up very, very soon. If it was one on the right or one on the left or whatever, if it's a different pattern, then you have to go to that pattern instead. Again, this will make more sense later. This pull is quite straightforward, but the tank needs to grab those two-handers quite quickly and turn them away from the group. The archers need to be interrupted, but all of these, regardless of their size, they do look quite big. They can actually be chained in, so don't panic. Just hold them still, AoE damage down, and you should be good to go. Watch the grapple. Again, you don't have to be really, really accurate with the grapple. You just need to be kind of in the area of it. Don't panic and spin your camera around too much. Now, this ad pull does have a lot of kind of area of effect damage coming in. You've got some dual wheels that spin quite a bit. They do hurt, but just try not to stand in their face. Do not run away if you get aggro. Just stand near the tank. The tank can take it off you. It's not too stressful, but if you do stand still in the middle of loads of AoE, you are going to die. Now, look at that up there. Grapple up top. 4 symbols on the ground. You activate it, the 4 symbols light up. It's obviously not the other 2 symbols on the ground. It's the one with 4 on it. So last time it was the one with 1. This time it's the one with 4. The boss can stand in that one, and it's affecting him in a negative manner, so we can actually do damage to it. Again, that is going to become more relevant when we get to the next boss. What needs to happen is somebody needs to find the correct symbol, and somebody needs to activate it. When that happens, you will see one of the symbols on the ground swirling and saying, hey, look, over here, get me. That is the one that you need to put the boss in order to break his immunity shield. There are other mechanics, but we're now going to go into that here. If you do this wrong, you will die. This is very unforgiving. It's a simple boss, but it's an unforgiving one, so don't mess it up. There are 4 platforms on the ground, or 4 flat square areas of concrete. Ignore the grills. The flat square areas are what you're looking at. Now, the boss should be held on one of these to start with. And you simply stack and burn for a moment. But there are 3 different grapples around the room. 1 DPS to each one and a healer perhaps to the other one. Look on the floor, find a symbol. If there's no symbol, come back down. One of you will have a symbol. As you can see here, it's number 2. Each one has got 1, 2, 3, or 4 symbols on top of it. Once you find the correct one, the tank needs to hold the boss on that platform, and the group need to break the damage shield of the boss. Once that's done, he will stab the ground, and you're back to normal again. If you don't do that, the room is going to set on fire, and you will all die. Then, the next phase is loads of ads, so grab them in, hold them still, do not run around the room. You need to get rid of these fairly quickly, and you need to control them. Now, as you see the symbols have lit up, we have to go look again. So we go up to the top. It's number 1. As you can see here, watch out for the heavy attack from the ads. If I activate this, it tells the tank which platform to stand on. You can see it swirling there. That is where the boss needs to be, and we need to break his damage shield for him to smash his sword into the ground. And then the kiln is turned off again. And it's rinse repeat. Kill the ads, hold the boss still, and move the boss to the platform that you need to put him on only when you have discovered which one it is. Now, yes, you can just tell the tank via comms or text or whatever which number it is, and they can just move it over to there. There is an achievement for that, actually, without actually activating the sigils. But if you do activate the sigils, it does tell them where to go. Again, do not run around the room when you get loads of ads. Make sure you keep them as close to the tank as possible, otherwise this is going to be a cluster of absolute hell. So just relax, control yourself, decide who's going to go up and press those buttons. As you can see here, we've got number 1. Break the damage shield. We're going to die in a minute because it's too much fire. Break the shield, smash the ground, all good. And it's rinse repeat. Over and over and over. Ads boss, ads boss, ads boss. Whenever the ground lights up, get the grapples. It's 1 to the left, 1 to the front, and 1 to the right. Check which number sigil it is, and tell the tank which one it is, so they can go to it. There's 3 major phases of that, but the longer the fight goes on, the harder it gets. So you must be very clear with your mechanics. If you do not, for whatever reason, take the tank to the correct platform or sigil, or you do not break the boss's damage shield while he is in the correct place, you will not make him stab the sword into the ground, he will not turn the kiln off, and you will all die. That can be a little frantic. You can burn him very, very fast, but you still have to go through those motions. Even on normal, you have to go through that. So the sooner you understand that mechanic, the better. Now, this is quite simple. Pull all the ads in, turn them around, make sure nobody stands in their faces, and of course, make sure the tank prioritizes the two-handers because they need to be taunted first. The archers are fine, you can step in and out of their AoEs, but the two-handers do hit very, very hard. They will one-shot DPS if you're not careful, or if you're lacking champion points in your resistances. Maybe you're quite new to these dungeons, you may be lacking some champion points. It's not going to make it so you can't complete it, but it is going to make your resistances a bit lower if you don't have them in certain areas, and you are going to be susceptible to some of that harder stuff, so just be careful. Bone Colossus, again, turn it away from the group. If you have to kill the adds that come out, you have to kill the adds. It depends on how much DPS you have in your group. If it's low, don't worry, just kill them. If it's high, then you can go past that. Now we're on the next secret. If you have the previous secret boss killed and you picked up the buff, you can now see these invisible grapples. So make sure that you use these to get across, and then straight up here. There's actually 3 of them. Once you get here, this is when it gets a little tricky. Now remember I told you had to aim roughly in the area of the grapple? Well, this is very important. So you aim roughly in the area, hit the button, look to your right, and then aim roughly in the area of the next one. You do have to do both in succession, one after the other. If you fail, you will fall in the ditch. Now this boss will move around, so that is a very important grapple point. Again, you don't need to wiggle around like hell, just aim roughly in the area, and as soon as you see it pop up, hit that button. So here, turn it away from the group, obviously as the tank. Make sure you do as much damage as you can as the group, and the healer keep people alive. Now, there will be obviously totems in here, just like the first boss. You do have to get rid of those. But during the fight, this boss will go immune and jump to the other side. Now we have to use the platform again. So jump across, aim roughly in the area, and then just spam that button until you land. When you get there, you have to then interrupt the target and break the damage shield. Otherwise, you are screwed. So it's a break the damage shield first, interrupt after. If that circle underneath the boss spreads to full, the boss will run away. Now, yes, of course, as you can see here, it turned into a big bone Goliath thing. That just means it'll hit a bit harder, and it's a bit tougher to kill. But as long as the tank maintains a taunt and blocks the heavy stuff, you should be just fine. It's really not that dangerous. But if you drop your block, you're pretty much dead. Again, once the Goliath mode has gone, this boss will teleport across the platforms. Again, up roughly in the area, hit the button, then look to the right and roughly aim again. So you can see here, I just kind of let it drift, and then as soon as I see it pop up, I hit it. Damage shield, you need to break. Once it's broken, you need to interrupt. Now the boss is not going to run away. The jumping backwards and forwards will keep happening through the fight until you've killed her, and so will the totems and the AoE, so watch out for those. But just be very clear with your aim. You don't have to overemphasize your targeting. Just in the right direction will be enough. Some people try to be way too precise, and that actually wastes valuable seconds, and they end up falling in a ditch. It's really, really simple once you get over that fear of it. Once you've killed the boss, of course, pick up this extra buff. So now we've got 2 buffs from the secret bosses. And this is very important. If you've killed both of the secret bosses so far, you will have access to the third. You have to kill each one individually to access the others. If you don't kill the first one, you can't get to the second one. If you don't kill the second one, you can't get to the third. Do not let that boss run away. You must break the damage shield, you must interrupt it, and you must obviously get to the platforms nice and quick without panicking. Now this boss is very, very simple. The adds that will spawn can be killed individually and spread across the room if you like. Or you can stack your resistances, you can stack your mitigating effects, you can stack some high heals, and you can stand under the boss the whole time and just go hell for leather. The choice is yours. Even with low DPS, you can do this, as long as you do stack mitigating effects in the form of damage shields, resists, and heals. So we're going to show you how to do this very efficiently, and then I'll go over the mechanics briefly afterwards. The boss will do heavy attacks and such, and big spins, so the tank does need to maintain a taunt the whole time. But if you stay in the middle here, where it's safe in the circle, make your healers and tanks spam those damage shields and heals, you can actually stand central without dying. If you stand in the AoEs themselves, you will obviously take a lot more damage and you will die. So be very, very careful. Try and find the little gaps, but don't run around the room. Try and hug up as much as you can. The adds have very, very low health, so you don't need a massive amount of damage to kill them. Any average group can do this. But again, the trick is your mitigation. If you have very good damage shields, very good heals, and you have Novas or Permafrost or anything like that, you can fight against the incoming damage from all those spins. Now, if you are struggling with that, and it's not something that you can do as a group, you don't have all the stuff that you need, you can, of course, spread out when those adds come out, and you can kill them individually and just relax. Make sure you stay out of the circles. So they all have like a ring underneath them. Get inside the circle or outside the circle and kill them one by one. Now those ads do spawn several times throughout the fight. They will spawn roughly around sort of 90, 60, and 40, or 90, 70, and 40, but it depends on how fast your burn is. I will go over that obviously in the written guide to give you a more precise amount, but you can burn it or you can pace it. It's up to you. But if you do decide to burn it, again, make sure that you do have all those shiny mitigating effects. We have a very high health tank spamming Igneous Shields on us, so it's very hard for us to take damage. Alongside Permafrost or Nova, or a combination of the two, it's pretty helpful. Now, these ad pulls are pretty much the same as what you've seen already. Get the big stuff, stack it all together, turn it away from the group, make sure the two-hander is obviously your main priority as the tank. DPS, do not stand in stupid. Try and stay behind the enemies as much as possible, keep up your AoEs, and you shouldn't have too much of a problem with these. Even if you've got low damage, it's not the end of the world, you can still kill them, it's not a problem. Again, two-hander is always taunted first. There's a couple in here, so be very, very careful. The dual wield isn't too much of a problem, just watch out for his spins. And watch out for that Atronach as well, which is summoned from the mage over there, because if he heavy attacks you, you're going to want to dodge it, because otherwise you're going to lose a lot of health. You can sometimes take a one-shot from there if you're a squishy DPS, so do be careful. Again, typical stuff. Stack it, burn it. Not much more in that, to be honest. As long as the tank is on point, you shouldn't have any problems. Now, the next boss is where you are going to have your problems. This ad here, I know it's really tempted to hit him with an ultimate. Don't, because you're going to need it. Now, you are going to see the grapple mechanics again. However, because of the buffs you picked up, you do have a bit of a benefit here. When you use the grapple hooks, you actually do damage to anyone standing next to it. If you don't have these buffs, you obviously don't have that. You'll just turn up and say hi and have to hit stuff. But if you do travel with these buffs on, you will damage them. Now, stack and burn is obviously the first part of this fight, so stay together, stay away from the boss's face, and do as much damage as you can while staying alive. But be very careful, because this boss will spawn ads, one of which is very, very dangerous. The ghosts aren't too bad, but make sure you kill them. The bone colossus, however, must be killed, and it must be aggroed by the tank. The heavy attack will one-shot a DPS or a healer, so if you get caught, make sure you dodge it, and a tank will get thrown backwards even if they block. If you don't kill the bone colossus quick enough, you will get another one, and it gets to be a bit of a pain. Now, we need to get out of the room once that green mist goes everywhere, and we have to travel around the edges to kill these ads. As you saw then, I damaged him as soon as I got there without actually hitting him. That's because of the buff we have. So you can travel from one to the other and just kill them doing that if you want, and your tank can even do that as well. Although tanks technically don't really build for damage, you can do damage because you are using that buff once you arrive at the platform. Now, you go around the edges until they're all dead, and once they're all dead, that poison stuff on the middle of the platform there, that will disappear. This is when you go back into the middle and deal with the boss again, just like you did at the beginning. Kill the ghost, kill the bone colossus, and damage the boss as much as you can. This is when another mechanic comes in, however, and it gets a little bit tricky and not necessarily that obvious to most, but don't worry, we're going to explain it. The boss will now start channeling from the center of the room once he gets around the 60% health mark. Now, we need to hide behind these little platforms here. As you can see, these grapple points will glow, and so will our character if we stay behind them. And there are 4 ghosts around the room, these menders that are kind of keeping his health up. Now, if you kill these individually, you will eventually obviously take the healing away from the boss, and he'll go back down to normal and you can fight him. But the rest of the time, he's going to keep pulse and loads of energy, and it's really, really going to hurt. So you must stay behind these platforms. If they start glowing, he's going to burst, and you need to protect yourself. Just bear in mind, of course, you can grapple from one to the other to get yourself around the room. And remember, we do have that buff on us that does damage to enemies if we pass through them or get near them with the grapple. Once they're all dead, then you can come back into the middle, and it's back to stage 1 again. You will have to kill the bone colossus, you will have to kill the ads, and you'll have to do damage to the boss. Now, once these are down, be very careful again. If you get heavy attacked by the colossus, you need to dodge roll that. Easiest way to do it is if you see it coming, 3, 2, 1, dodge roll. Any sooner than that, you'll get caught. Any later than that, you're dead. Poison comes up again, and we have to go around the room again. You've seen this once already. You only have to do it twice throughout the fight, but now we have to kill all the ghosts surrounding the room. If you don't get out quick enough, you will die in the middle. Just remember, if you have these buffs, you will damage them on the way in. You don't have to sit there doing DPS rotations. Just ping-pong backwards and forwards until it's dead if you want to. That's very helpful for tanks and healers because they can actually benefit you in this particular fight section. Now, back into the middle. Everything's safe. You have to get in quickly, by the way, because the poison goes around the room instead of in the middle. And this is kind of your end phase. You can now go for the burn if you're quick. But if not, and you don't quite make it past his extreme stage, if you like, you can, of course, get around the room again, hiding behind the little platforms, kill the ghosts, and come back in again. It's rinse, repeat until it's over. So there's two major phases. One is the outside of the room, killing the ghost and then get back in. And the other is hugging the outside of the grapples while protecting yourself while killing those ghosts to take the buff off of him. Now this secret door here, this is number 3. If you do not kill the other two bosses, the secret ones, this door will fire you backwards and kill you. You can't get in. So you must have killed the other two secrets first. And now we have this big massive Malcolm to kill, and he is actually a really fun fight, but as you can see around this room there are multiple grapple points. This is very important. So what we tend to do is we use the middle grapple point as a pivot and just hold the boss here, so that whenever he drops his AoE on the ground we can slightly move him and just overlap them around the center of the room. That way it doesn't cluster the whole room and we don't have too many places to try and avoid. These skeletons must be focused, however. They are very, very important, and you do need to kill them as soon as possible, and the tank must aggro them because they will one-shot a DPS or a healer. Do not even try and block them because you will be screwed. These oozes that come around the room, they are tiny to start with, and then they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and some of them end up with 11 million health. They are massive, but the way to defeat them is to use the grapple points. If you go straight through one, remember you've got that buff that does damage to enemies, you will split them in two. And they're obviously much, much lower health when they're split into two. Try not to stand in that middle area because you will take a massive amount of damage. Yes, you can stack and burn this boss quite quickly if you have very high DPS, but we're obviously showing you the basic mechanics to this one. If you want to get rid of those oozes and you don't want to be overwhelmed with loads and loads of adds, grapple straight through them and they will split in half. Now, the boss doesn't have too much health in comparison to most bosses. It's pretty standard stuff, but there are some very, very negative effects. Look at that. He's massive. 7.8 million health there. Grapple straight through. Dead. Really, really fun stuff. Just send someone around the room to get rid of those if your group has low DPS and you can't burn straight through it. So there are choices, of course. You can hold him in the middle and just circle that little grapple point to keep it safe and burn him down. Or you can pace it, make sure you kill the skeletons, and gradually get rid of the ooze around the room. As you can see here, there's another urn. This is the third buff, the third and final buff that we have just obtained for doing all 3 secrets. And yes, you can take these with you to the last boss. Now, we've got a few more adds to deal with along the way. We're almost at the last boss, but there's a point here where you can be killed very, very quickly. Usually the tank dies here because there's a one-shot coming up. But essentially, same as before, watch that heavy attack. I did get caught by the two-hander there, and luckily I didn't die because I had a damage shield on me. But the tank needs to grab the two-hander straight away and stack and burn the adds. Very simple stuff. You've seen it all before. Do not panic, and definitely do not run around the room if you're getting chased by an ad. Remember, the way to manage ads, if you are a DPS or a healer, if the tank hasn't got it yet, they have resources just like you. They could run out. You need to make sure you take it to the tank. Now, these buffs that I mentioned earlier, as you can see here, we've got 3 different ones. This will give you weapon and spell damage. This one will give you stam and mag recovery, and the last one will give us a nice big health bonus. Now, just bear in mind, each one of these is heightened by a small percentage if you're a necromancer. So, just like March of Sacrifices, where you get benefits for being a werewolf, the buffs are stronger for you. In this one, the buffs are stronger for necromancers. Everybody does get a really healthy buff, though. As you can see now, we've got 21.9k health. I'm usually on 15.9. Eben and Minor Toughness obviously enhances that to put me up to about 18, almost 19, and this buff here is massive. So we are really, really good for our health, our recovery, and our weapon and spell damage as a group. And this really benefits you on the last boss, especially the tank, because if you're a squishy one, you are dead. This is where the tank dies. See this here? Dodge roll out of that, or block it. I got lucky there and blocked it. Mid dodge roll. If you get caught by that raw with no blocks, no dodge rolls or anything, you will die. It's going to one-shot DPS easily, and I've seen tanks die to that as well because they've gone kind of half health from the last ad pull and got stomped on, basically. So be careful of that. That's your no death run killer right there, so be very careful if you're trying to get those achievements. Now, the last boss, of course, we are going to do hard mode, and you are going to see all the mechanics for it, but I'm going to give you a few tips as to how you can make this easy for yourself. Now, remember, we do have these buffs on. You can do it without, but you will have a lot less health, recovery, and flat spell damage and weapon damage. Now that we're on the hard mode, we've activated the skulls in the corner there. The boss has gone from 8.5 million to 18 million health, so it's a much, much longer fight. Look around the room and you see all these little Daedric runes on the ground. Those are very relevant. If adds get to them, they will get stronger and all hell lets loose. So be very, very aware of these particular platforms on the ground. There are phases where we will have to kill adds and it will get very, very tricky. Now, for the most part, you can stack and burn, but that tank needs to be very aware of the mechanics because those heavy attacks will kill him. When he puts the hand under the ground there, that big fist that pops up and grabs him, that you'll need to break free from because it'll do a stun and it will do massive damage. As you saw then, the boss put his hand up and there was a flood of magic damage across the floor in multiple directions. Stay at that AoE, by the way. When that happens, you need to block it and then just carry on with what you're doing. It's a very fast mechanic. However, if you want to just burn through it, you can if you stack a massive amount of spell resistance. So that's very, very important for that mechanic. The spread and AoE that you saw on the ground a moment ago puts mines on the ground. Just make sure you don't stand on them. They look like little horns sticking out the ground. And one more you need to watch out for is these cages that come up and try to root you and do loads and loads of damage. You see those? You get out as soon as possible. Heavy heals there. Do not get caught. Now, you will now start getting to see adds. You will get a two-hander skeleton that must die first. He has to go. You don't need to taunt him or anything. You can actually chain him if he's close by, but you don't have to do that. Just make sure as DPS you knock this guy down fast. And you've got blast bones in the room as well. They will go over to these little platforms or runes on the ground, and once they power up, they will shoot across the room and explode. If you get caught by those, you will die. However, what you can do is you can pack resistances to make sure that you don't die, of course, and if you're very quick, once they're about to run, you can actually dodge roll that mechanic and they'll completely be avoided. Safest way, of course, is to kill them, but if you don't have loads of DPS, it's not the end of the world. Just maintain your stamina, make sure you can dodge roll those blast bones when they come in, and you should be absolutely fine. Every time these adds spawn, they are your main priority. Get off the boss, kill that two-hander first, and then kill or avoid these blast bones. Now, the reason I'm using caltrops, of course, is to make sure that I've got fracture on the ground and massive area of effect, especially for these blast bones guys, but you don't obviously have to use that, but the more AoE you've got, the better. Watch out for these cages, and the rest of the fight is pretty much the same. You have to be very, very careful, obviously, with your feet. Don't stay in the big circles and don't stay in the cages. The time that he raises his hand to put the fist out of the ground to hit the tank with, the tank needs heavy heals, otherwise it's going to die very, very quickly because it hurts. And remember, you must kill those blast bones during the ad phase, because if that happens to the tank at the same time as the blast bones comes in, they're dead. If a tank has low health, it's very, very hard to survive. Now, at around 50 to 45%, you're going to see the boss go in the middle, depending on your burn. And this is going to happen. He's going to show you how much of a better necromancer he is than you, because he's going to spawn this massive bone colossus. Now, do not panic. When he breathes like that at the group, you need to dodge roll. Apart from that, the fight is pretty much the same. You must prioritize the adds, you must stay out of stupid, and you must dodge roll the breath. Don't stand in any mines. Pretty much good to go. If you've got lots and lots of damage, you can make this phase very, very fast, but if you don't, it's not a problem. There is no enrage mechanic as such. This is all there is to see. So, once this is kind of understood, you can take your panic away and just pace the fight. Remember when he raises his hand there and he has that nasty spreading spell damage kind of dust that goes across the ground? That can be avoided by just plugging your spell resistances in your champion points, or by having lots of resistances on your build. Again, at execute, do not panic. Make sure you focus on what you're doing. You must kill this skeleton at all costs. You must kill or avoid the blast bones, and then you can go back to the boss. It's very, very simple if you don't make it overcomplicated for yourself. Now, the big boss over there, the Bone Colossus, the further away you are, obviously, the more likely you are to get him to fire that nasty fireball at your face. But if you don't stand too far away, you'll be just fine, and you can obviously just step out of it. Just remember when he breathes with a frost breath, you can have high resistances to avoid it, but it's safer to just dodge roll it. So, to recap over the main basics, heavy attacks for the tank need to be blocked. The big fist that comes out of the ground, keep heavy heals on the tank because they will have to break free from it and they're exposed. The mines on the ground, avoid them. The dust across the floor, mitigate it with spell resistance or block it or both. And the adds must be focused. Remember, kill the blast bones or dodge them. It's entirely up to you. The one thing I must stress is do not panic. There's no enrage. As long as you've seen those mechanics and got through them once, you can repeat it over and over. So, hopefully it helped, hopefully it wasn't too boring, hopefully you now have a better understanding of how to approach this particular dungeon, you know how to do the secrets, you know how important they are, you know what buffs you get, you know how to deal with the boss, and how to deal with those difficult mechanics in some of the other fights that are very, very unforgiving. So, if you do have any issues, of course, just bear in mind that is an element of practice in there. There's a lot going on, and of course more details will be in the written guide on the website. So first of all, thank you very much for watching. I hugely appreciate the support. If you are not subscribing on YouTube, please do hit that button. It is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support outside the channel, there are some links on the info section or the description for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, the website xynodegaming.com, where all the written guides are, including this one. And of course, don't forget I live stream every night except for Wednesdays on Twitch at 10 PM UK time onwards. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.